Hi, Haley. I wanted to leave you some feedback on essay two. So I think that there are some really good moments in this essay. I like some of the thinking that you're doing in this essay in terms of, going, okay, well, like I've kind of gone through the motions in high school and I'm going through the motions in college, but you keep asking yourself, but am I learning, right? Am I? And so I think what's kind of the sub question in there is am I getting an education? And you talked about the same thing, or you're kind of thinking about that as well with teachers, like do they continue to learn throughout their careers? So I really like those ideas that you are playing around with. um, I do think that you need a clear thesis statement. So you start off with this idea that education is difficult to define, and it means things for different people. And then you say for most people, it means school, but we still don't know how you define it. So I don't see a clear thesis in this essay. So I don't see a clear definition of the word education, right? And as this is a thesis driven essay, right, your purpose um is to define education. um that having that clear thesis statement is a necessary component for this essay. Make sure that you are also editing for sentence fragments. So a sentence to be a complete thought has to have a subject and a verb. You have a fragment here, you have a fragment here, and there's more sentence fragments throughout the essay. So that is a grammatical error. That is something that needs to be addressed. So if you do revise this essay, and I encourage you to do so, please make sure that you are editing for sentence fragments. And if you need help with that, you can talk to me about it. Um, I really like this idea that this question that you want to pose, am I learning? So I wonder if you could attempt to answer that in the thesis statement. So if the thesis, so if you could say education is this, and then you put it into however you define it, then you could take these different scenarios and determine whether or not you are indeed learning. So, for example, one classmate defined education as creativity. So, and then the student gave different scenarios that they felt, different educational scenarios that they thought indicated creativity or those that did not. And they used that to determine whether or not they thought those situations were indeed educational. So that's, or sorry, yeah, creative educational. So that's one of the ways that you could attempt to get a thesis statement and have an interesting exploration. When you are bringing authors into the text, remember that you have to summarize and create a clear signal phrase first. So make sure that you introduce John Gatto's essay against schools. So you state his full name and the article title, and then objectively summarize the overarching main idea before you start bringing in the minor points. So you have to introduce the article with the signal phrase, and then you have to objectively capture the overarching main idea before you bring in those minor points in order to build your ethos with the reader. Sorry, I was looking at this section right here. Yeah, I think that this is an interesting moment too, where you're kind of imagining yourself as a future teacher and kind of like the teacher that you don't want to be. And I would argue that, as a teacher that's been doing this for 10 years, well, you are responsible for keeping yourself from being bored. And many teachers revise assignments all the time, bring in new assignments all the time. So, sure, yes, some do reuse the same assignments semester after semester. But I would argue that most teachers make tweaks, right? Because we recognize we try something and it doesn't really work out the way that we wanted to. So it's kind of our responsibility to make the changes to ensure that the next time we teach it, it goes a little better. So there's a variety of ways that teachers can keep themselves from being bored, and I would argue that most of us do. Um, so I think that you have some interesting points, um, but I think that overall it reads a little bit disorganized, and I think it's because you don't have a clear thesis statement. So I would start with that idea. I would re-outline the paper starting with your definition, and then saying, okay, so if this is my definition, what key points do I absolutely need to address in order to support it? So I do recommend you give this another round of revision for thesis statements, support of the thesis statement and sentence fragments. And if you have any questions, please let me know. All right, thanks.